Hey, this is Scott L. Miller here on Sam IT on YouTube, and we are continuing this series on RAID, the redundant array of inexpensive disks. And today we're going to be talking about the very first layer, the first level of RAID, and that is RAID 0. So a lot of people say RAID 0 isn't real RAID because it's not redundant. But this is a misunderstanding of the term redundant. Redundant means that you have more than one of something, and if you have more than one disk, it's redundant. They say it's not redundant because there's no engineering redundancy. There's no protection against disk failure. This is true, but that doesn't make it not redundant. There's redundant in the English sense and redundant in the engineering sense, and they're different words. Just like if you work in England and you are made redundant, means you're being laid off. It doesn't mean that you have some kind of special reliability. Okay, so what does RAID 0 do? RAID 0 is known as striping. It's straight striping. There's nothing else to it. All we do with RAID 0 is stripe disks. And what does this mean? Well, let's say we have 2 disks or 3 disks or 4 disks. It doesn't matter. RAID 0 allows you to have any number of disks greater than 1. And in some cases, we can kind of play with semantics and say that even 1 disk can be in RAID 0, but that's a little bit weird, and we're just getting into being weird. But that's going to happen a bit when we're talking about RAID. We're going to talk about a number of cases where we need to think about sets of only 1 when it should be more than 1, or it's not redundant. But we'll get to that. So with RAID 0s, assuming you have 2 or more disks, what we do is as data is written into the array, because that's what we have, right? All the disks are put together to act as one. And the data is written first to the first disk, then to the second disk in blocks. Each block goes first to one disk, then the next disk. In reality, this happens in parallel, so all the disks are working at once. So if you have 3 disks, you're able to write 3 blocks in the time it takes for a drive to write 1 block. Right? So the thing is that computers are fast and disks are slow. So the computer has plenty of time to get everything ready, get things over to the disks so that the disks can do their job. And the computer's always waiting for the disks. So anything we can do to speed up the disks, whether we make it 3 times as fast or 300 times as fast, the computer will still be waiting for the disks. So the performance here can be dramatic. We're able to write to the disk at a number of times faster as the number of disks we have. If we have 2 disks, we can write twice as fast. If we have 10 disks, we can write 10 times as fast. If we have 20 disks, we can write 20 times as fast. And the same thing happens when we read data off the disks. We're getting 2 times or 10 times or 20 times the performance that we would from a single disk. And I have to apologize for the image blooming. I can't really correct that. So the reason that we tend to go for RAID 0 is that we get this unbelievable amount of performance, right? You just want to double the speed of your disks because disks is often what you're waiting for. Storage is the thing that slows you down with your computer. So if we go with RAID 0, we have an opportunity to dramatically change the performance of your system right from the get-go. You go with a second disk, you've simply doubled the performance of your storage. It's that simple. So a lot of times, even in desktops, people will use RAID 0 because they want to get that performance. Now, of course, there are factors we need to consider, like capacity. Capacity grows just like performance does. So if you have 2 disks, you're getting double the capacity of a single disk. So if those are two 2-terabyte drives, suddenly you have 4 terabytes to work with. If you have 4 of them, suddenly you have 8 terabytes to work with. That's really handy. We grow our capacity and grow our performance linearly. It's amazing, right? But there's a caveat. This isn't magic, right? So what is the problem? Is that it comes with reliability. When we have a single disk, we know there's a chance we're going to lose that disk, and that chance is about 100%. It's just when, right? We think of risk in drive loss in terms of per year. If we think of it that way, we have maybe a 3 to 4% chance that we're going to lose any given drive in any given year. But if you take enough time, there's roughly a 100% chance you're going to lose your drive eventually. It's just whether you'll replace it before you get to that point. When we have 2 disks in RAID 0, we have 2 disks to fail. Either one fails and your array is dead. All the data is lost. You're not going to recover half the data. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have missing bits of files. Half of the file will be missing, and it'll be half ripped out of all through the middle. You can't realistically recreate anything from a destroyed RAID array. it's lost data. Now, if you have backups, great, you can obviously still restore from your backups, but your RAID array will be lost. So if you have 2 disks, you're roughly doubling your chances of something terrible, catastrophic, happening to your storage. Have 10 disks, and those chances go up a lot. It's not exactly 10 times, because statistics, right? Math. But it goes up a lot. You're talking about huge increases in risk. When you start getting up to 10 or 20 disk arrays, you're pretty much guaranteeing that every year or two you're going to lose everything, right? So if you're building large systems for, like, say, caching and ephemeral data that you don't care about at all, scratch space that just needs to store big chunks of things while it moves somewhere else, great. RAID 0 is fast, it's cheap, and huge capacity, really easy. Simple. If it all gets lost, restore from wherever you came from, because you were getting performance or capacity or whatever. But if you're looking for a way to stay more reliable, whether it's keeping the reliability you originally had or getting more reliable than where you started, RAID 0 is not going to be an option for you. And for most people, RAID 0 is not an option, to the point that many people simply rule it out. But that's not appropriate. RAID 0 really does have its places, whether it's in ephemeral data storage or pure performance plays like a video gaming desktop, or if it's an underlying component of other storage infrastructures, which we will get to later in the series. So that's us on RAID 0. Thanks for joining us. I hope this was informational, and we're going to be doing a lot more on RAID because this is one of my subject areas and everyone's been asking for it. So we're definitely going to be hitting every bit of RAID that we can find. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'm going to be putting this into a special series on RAID so you can follow specifically along there or with the main Sam IT channel and learn more about IT in general. Remember to comment below and share your experiences.